Hey y'all, it's Jess from Hobby Jobby Creations, and today I'm going to show y'all how I sublimate onto Oracal 651 white vinyl. And as I always say, I'm sure there are many ways to do this. However, this is just my process as it works for me. Also, below I will leave all the links to certain items and the images that I'm using in this video. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So here I have my Oracal 651. This is the white. I'm just lifting this up to show y'all that it is the white and it's not the clear. And I am going to have to cut this to the size that I need. So I am going to, it's already at a length that's good for me, but I'm just going to cut it to a width of 8.5 inches. And I'm going to need it to be that width because I'm going to have to laminate it, and I'll show y'all that here in a second, but 8.5 is the width that I'm going to need to be able to fit under my laminate sheet. So here is where we're going to go ahead and laminate the vinyl. And so I buy the thermal laminate pouches, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to split it in half. They both have adhesive on each side, so by splitting it in half it'll end up giving me 2 sheets instead of 1, so I'm also saving a little bit of money on supplies here. The brand that I use, I will not have the link to in the bottom because I do live in Germany, so I got these at a German store, but you can find them at anywhere like Walmart or any office supply store. So anyways, now I'm just going to line it up real good. I want to make sure that it doesn't get off because I do have it measured to the exact size of my vinyl sheet, and I do not like to waste anything, so I want to make sure that it's absolutely lined up properly. Once again, this is my laminating machine. I did get this at Kaufland. It's a German store. However, it's much like Walmart, so you can find these pretty cheap at Walmart or an office supply store. Anyway, now that I have my laminate lined up pretty well over my vinyl sheet, I am going to make sure that my machine is on hot because mine does cold and hot. So I'm going to make sure it's on hot mode, and then I am going to go ahead and feed my vinyl that is covered through the laminator. And I just like to keep my hands on both sides, just kind of to try and keep everything lined up nicely. I know it's not really going to make much of a difference because it's already on there and it's going to go whichever way it's going to go, but just for my peace of mind. Now that I have my vinyl prepped, I have a Cricut, so I move on to Cricut Design Space. And I'm going to take my print then cut file and I'm actually going to duplicate it. That way I can turn the duplicate into a cut file. This way I'll be able to sublimate the printed file onto the cut file after I cut it out from my Oracal through my Cricut. Now I'm going to walk y'all through my process on how I get my settings to cut through the vinyl, which is covered with the laminate. Now I did hit make it, and then from this menu I went ahead and I continued. I chose obviously my machine. Now once it shows me my materials, I've made a material that is called laminated stickers. That is just the name that I chose for this particular setup with the covered vinyl because it's similar to when I make my stickers and I cover them. But before I get into that, I'm going to show y'all how I got to this setting. So first you're going to go into browse all materials, and then you're going to go down and you're going to click on materials settings. Once you're in material settings, you're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom because we're going to add a new material. And then bear with me while I type this out while I'm holding the camera at the same time. I'm going to name this one YouTube. You can name it whatever you want to. I'm just naming it YouTube because I've already got this setting, so I just want to make sure that I have it differentiated so I know which one to delete later. But anyway, so then I'm going to adjust my pressure settings to 292. Don't ask me why. That's just the one that everybody online always says go to 292. You can select how many times you want it to repeat the cut, so sometimes it'll go over 2, 3, 4 times. I put 0 times because I mean, one cut usually works perfectly fine for my machine. You might have a different setting, a different preference, but one time usually works for me. So anyway, then we've saved it, and so now YouTube shows up. Now we're back to the set base material screen, and you're gonna go over to browse all materials again, and you're gonna scroll down, and there's gonna be a section with all the materials that you've made yourself. And now that I've reached my materials, I'm going to select the YouTube, and I'm going to favorite it. Once you click that little star to favorite it, it's going to show up in your base materials page. It's going to show up there every time you use your Cricut as a selection. That way it's easier to get to. You don't have to go searching for it every time. As I said before, I use these same settings for my stickers. So for my stickers, it cuts all the way through. So that's why I put less pressure, because I don't want the Cricut to cut all the way through. I still want to have that backing so I can still have everything all together and put the transfer sheet on like normal. So I'm going to put less pressure, and then I'm going to put it through the Cricut and let the Cricut cut my cut file. And just as a quick side note, do not mirror the cut file. We're going to keep it regular, so don't mirror it. But anyway, now that we have our cut file cut out, we are now able to move on to our print file. So I know you'll see a couple other images on there. That's because I printed them out for another project that I'm working on as well. But anyway, so I just do a regular print and cut, and I am going to mirror this one. So you can either mirror it in your printer settings or you can mirror it in the Cricut. I just went ahead and mirrored it in the Cricut. I select my machine, even though I'm not going to need my machine, so I'm not sure why I selected that. But anyway, we just go to send to printer, and then we are going to turn off the bleed. We want to make sure we have it set to our Sublimation printer, and we're going to turn off the bleed because we don't want that bulky outline around it. And then we're going to use the system dialog. Once your system dialog pops up, make sure that you go to your printer preferences and everything, and make sure that everything is the way you like it for when you sublimate. So I have the Epson 2720, so I make sure to use the premium presentation paper matte, and I have Cosmos ink, and I put it to high quality. Usually I would mirror it through my printer settings, but since I already mirrored it through my Cricut, I don't have to worry about that. Oh, and you want to make sure to turn off high speed. If you have the high speed function, turn it off, otherwise you're going to get lines and it's not going to look as good. Then we are going to select OK, and we're going to let our printer take it from here. Now we're moving on. This light that I use, it's a sketching light. You can find them on Amazon pretty cheap. I will leave a link below for this particular one, even though I think they said it's out of stock. I think somebody told me that. But I'll leave the link for it, and you can find like products. But what I'm going to use this for is I'm going to cut my image out of my sublimation paper there, and then I'm going to set my cut file down, and since the sublimated image is mirrored, these two will go together nicely. And then I just use my light to be able to see through easier so that I can line them up perfectly. And then of course I'm going to use my heat tape to bind them together. After I have my sublimation image and my cut file bound together, I bring them over to my press, and I go ahead and sandwich them so that I don't dirty up my press. Then I'm going to smash that bad boy at 380 degrees Fahrenheit for 60 seconds. And then it should peel off nicely. I never have anything stick, and it usually comes out real pretty like this every time I've done it. So yeah, that's my whole process, and now all I have to do is just put a transfer sheet over it, and I'll be able to transfer it onto my project. Anyway, thank y'all so much for watching. If y'all like my content and y'all like to see more tutorials or anything else, like and subscribe to my channel, and give me some feedback and comments if you'd like to. Otherwise, thank you so much. I'll leave some links down below, and I'll see y'all next time.